Have you ever wondered how Grandmaster players effortlessly dominate with the Benko Gambit? Today, I'm revealing 11 crucial tips that can help you master this dynamic, fun gambit and transform your gameplay. Make sure to stick around for number 11, I promise it will get you a ton of rating points. The Benko Gambit is a gambit that occurs in the Benoni defense. Black plays b5, gambiting his b-pawn, which 56% of players accept, and then black sacrifices a second pawn with a6, which 50% of players accept. Tip number 1 in the Benko is going to be to fianchetto early. It can be confusing to study old games in the Benko Gambit, because historically players used to recapture the a6 pawn first with the bishop instead of getting fianchettoed and castling. But modern engine analysis shows us that white losing castling rights after the bishop trade really isn't as bad as it seemed, and white actually has a very comfortable advantage and the bishop takes a6 lines. Instead, we want to delay recapturing, and instead quickly fianchetto our dark bishop on the long diagonal and get castled as soon as possible. Tip number 2 in the Benko Gambit is to avoid kingside attacks. Your success in the Benko relies entirely on the queenside of the board. You're opening up your A and B files, and you have control over this long diagonal. At the end of the day, it's a more positional gambit, and endgames tend to be preferable for black even with queens off the board, due to our increased piece activity. We need to be targeting these two pawns and the queenside of the board. Too many beginners mistakenly push moves like, h5, f5, thinking they have to attack recklessly and quickly to deliver checkmate simply because they're playing a gambit. Don't fall into this trap. This is not a gambit where we try to immediately checkmate our opponent. It's a slow positional gambit. Tip number 3 is going to be to watch the long diagonal. Keep your eyes open always for sudden tactics on the long diagonal. A lot of decisive combinations in the Benko Gambit start right here, so be careful not to miss your chance. For example, after queen a5, if white plays bishop d3, protecting their pawn, recognizing the pin, we still have a tactic after taking on d5. We simply take the knight twice and win the exchange. There have even been grandmasters that have fallen for this trap. You'll constantly see tactics in the Benko flowing from your superior piece activity in the opening, middle game, and sometimes even in the endgame with this b-pawn. Always stay alert, as these tactical moments often appear suddenly, only last one move, and decisively shift the game. Tip number 4 in the Benko Gambit is going to be to preserve your dark squared bishop. Just like in the dragon, your dark bishop that's been fianchettoed is going to be by far your best minor piece in this opening. Your dark square bishop is gold, don't trade it off without a strong reason. And by a strong reason, 99% of the time that means a tactic specifically where you win material. This bishop pins down weaknesses like b2, as well as preventing annoying pawn breaks. It effectively halts your opponent's counterplay and is essential to the main plan of the Benko Gambit. Losing this bishop prematurely can severely reduce your positional strength. At the end of the day, the Benko Gambit pursues a dark square strategy. If you trade off your dark bishop, especially if your opponent still has a dark bishop, it turns these dark squares from your biggest strength into by far your biggest weakness. Tip number 5 is to consider the early c5 push. There are a couple different move orders you can use to get into the Benko. The more common and the more traditional approach is to start with the Indian defense with knight f6. But when you start in this manner, it allows your opponent to play moves like the London, the Jabava London, the Trempowski, and all kinds of different systems. By starting with c5 and playing the Benko like this, we can avoid all of those mainline openings like the London. Instead of the traditional order, next time try starting with c5. This tiny adjustment can land you comfortably in your preferred Benko positions while avoiding all kinds of theory. It's a small tweak that makes a big difference in simplifying your opening prep, especially at a beginner level. Tip number 6 is going to be to never fear your opponent pushing e5. Now, don't get me wrong, the early e5 line is a very powerful weapon for white against the Benko. But our position as black is still completely playable. If they do play e5, simply move your knight back to the back rank, and prepare to counter with d6 later, smoothly transitioning into a solid position. This calm response neutralizes white's ambitious attempts at early aggression, and keeps our position perfectly playable. The most important note here is that I would highly advise not rushing with d6 preventing e5. After all, we're already down material. we really don't have the turn to waste pushing d6 immediately. So instead of being scared of the e5 line, simply castle and develop your pieces first. Tip number 7 is going to be don't forget to move your rooks to the A and B files. This is an example of a common endgame position that you can get out of the Benko Gambit accepted. Don't forget that what we're doing in the Benko is trading off our pawns for superior pieces. If you're not taking advantage of your half-open A and B files, your pieces aren't all superior. This aggressive positioning of pieces and interplay between the bishop and rooks generates massive queenside pressure that your opponents just can't ignore, and this idea is especially crucial in endgames. Remember that this A and B pawn are always targets of ours. Proper rook placement often proves decisive in converting your queenside advantage. Tip number 8 is also going to be about endgames, and that's going to be to remember this idea. And that idea is that once the queens are off our board, we want to rotate our knight to the very powerful d3 square. From here, your knight absolutely dominates the board. It commands important squares that your opponent needs for mobility, and it creates plenty of tactical opportunities. A knight on d3 at this point can no longer be kicked by a pawn, and even targets the b pawn, which is a thematic target in the Benko. If you're able to secure this knight placement, your chances of winning will be increased significantly. Tip number 9 in the Benko Gambit is going to be to get comfortable playing and transitioning to endgames, even sometimes when you're down material. Remember, the Benko Gambit thrives on active piece play rather than counting pawns. Trust your positional compensation and you'll find many resources are available to you. Once again, especially on this A and B file. Benko Gambit tip number 10, patience is key. Patience pays off. Don't rush your attacks. Allow the queenside pressure to build slowly and strategically. Remember, although we played a gambit, we're barely ahead in development early on. Tactics though will quickly start to appear in the middle game if you just focus on getting pieces to their most aggressive squares. A patient approach consistently outperforms impulsive play in the Benko Gambit. And finally, the important tip 11, master your timing with your center pawn pushes. Executed correctly, this move dramatically shifts the balance of the position in your favor, unlocking your position and releasing your pieces. e6 can sometimes be useful for opening up positions, especially in endgames, but d6 will be the correct move 95% of the time. Say you have this position in a game, it's just the Benko fully accepted and our opponent has developed their bishops to d2 and e2. Which pawn push in this position would be preferable, e6 or d6? Well, let's look at the position. They have no real reason to trade on a6 and help us out. So I'll probably end up winning my knight on d7. Because of that, it would help to have this square free. e5 is also starting to look like a very strong move for white, so it would be very good to prevent. Both of these are high priority, so now is a great time to play d6. Understanding the logic and timing of e6 and d6 separates good Benko players from great ones. Now you're ready to dominate like a grandmaster with the Benko Gambit. Do you have any Benko tips of your own? Comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.